So people have wanted me to watch this Preach video for quite a while. I think it could be time to do that. Okay, good. All right, let's see what this is.
Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preacher and it's time. Legion is gone for me. It is finished. I'll be on vacation.
Thank God.
After PreachCon in order to relax and get ready for BfA before we go hard. So Legion is now done for me. I've done everything I want to do in Legion. It's all finished. I've sold absolutely everything. I recommend you guys do that.
Oh, I didn't do that. I never did that.
Legion related, sell it now while all the craziness is going on with pre-patch, all that kind of stuff. Just get rid of it so you're nice and got as much gold as you can, because that's universal. That's going to count next expansion. All your other stuff is not going to count.
You got to buy the long boy.
So, my final thoughts then. I mean, going into BfA, my summary of all these brand new features. We've had the official patch notes, which are super vague. They'll link down below. They're intentionally leaving out a lot of stuff, which is wise, I think, for the greater community. Let them find out themselves. And also, some of the changes don't affect the greater community, so they don't have to put it in, because most people will never know it changed in the first place.
Okay.
Firstly, the Heart of Azeroth. A new big thing.
Oh, this is the
really
new
like
artifact.
The implementation this time. Really like it. There's some definite advantages to having individual artifact weapons, especially with the skins and models they could go with. I think they did a decent job of that in Legion. Everybody had their preference. It worked out well, but it came with a lot of frustration, which was applying AP to individual weapons. Didn't really allow for multi-specking for a lot of people, so anybody who had to play one spec in one environment and a different spec in a different environment, they were kind of screwed compared to the guys who just played one spec. And it led to all those problems of trying to keep them both up to date, and the catch-up system. And basically a never-ending farming.
Oh, the volume's fine, guys. Volume's fine.
Very recently of pushing it further and further and further. And I'm sure many people just stopped at Concordance. But even getting that originally was a grind. I remember going into some LFRs and people were just like trying to farm any scrap of AP they could in order to get to their Concordance level. So this time around we have one unique item. It does take up an item slot. It'll just be a necklace. But it does automatically apply Azerite power or artifact power to the necklace when you do a world quest or something. You never have to interact with anything. You don't have to click anything in your bags. And it works for everything.
So this is the thing, right? Is the Azerite having to actually put the items in the weapon was too hard. So they changed that and made it better. By now you don't have to do anything. It just gives it to it and that's it. People couldn't handle clicking the button. It's just too much.
Respec. A far better solution. It is a far, far better solution. I'm okay with it. It feels a little redundant that it has to be an item because you can't.
No, I'm just joking around. It's a good change. It is a good change.
It might in the future.
It was a good change. It's just funny.
It has no sort of talent tree or any improvements in the character. That might have been a missed trick in my opinion. They could have done something there to enhance the characters in some way, but it's just a flat item that just levels up. That's it. So they could have even built that into the UI somewhere and give us something else that we apply to something instead of taking up a necklace slot. But as it is, potentially, if you watched our potential video, it's actually going to be the solution for the guys who wear heavy item level gear, regardless of statistics.
Oh yeah, this is
apply a lot of stats, like secondary stats. So I think they've decided to go with that route to simplify problems and solve problems for a lot of the player base. And if that's the case, thumbs up from me. I'm totally okay with that. It makes a lot of sense to me. I'm fine with it. The Azerite armor, I think we've talked about this to death. Very underwhelming, certainly from my perspective. There are a lot of players who are fine with it. BfA is an interesting expansion because it's the first time we're ever going to regress as players. That's objectively true, I believe. I can't see any. I've seen arguments against that, but they don't make sense to me. That's all I can say. I can't see how we haven't widespread reduced characters, even at a base level, not just talking legendaries and artifact weapons, but just simply a lot of abilities taken out of the character's baseline and put back in as talents so that you have just generally overall less stuff to choose from and less ways to play than you did in Legion. Despite some characters getting complete overhauls, so they feel much better in this new world because they've been entirely changed. Therefore, we're not doing a one-to-one comparison with them in Legion. They're okay. but everything else just feels less. So mages, for example, feel less. They just feel less in general as a baseline spec, not just as a spec with access to absolutely everything that we currently have in Legion. So regression is a sore point for me. I don't think any surprises there. I don't want to regress. I'm always looking forward to a brand new expansion, certainly to the new and interesting things, new spells, new abilities. That's something that I find very, very fun, very, very cool. I like Blizzard to get creative.
So here's the thing, right? Is I do want to pause here. Is that obviously I'm excited that there's a new expansion coming out. The thing that I'm not excited about is that it's Battle for Azeroth, right? I'm excited that there's a new expansion. Just I'm not excited because of the expansion itself, if that makes sense.
With that, but this time we're taking a big step backwards. Very sad about that. Azerite armor doesn't appear to solve that for now, but it has the potential to do that in the future.
That's true.
So what it creates is this interesting period leading up to 8.1 where we'll kind of see what the development cycle of the system is. We won't know until that point, when that's their first opportunity to actually show us new things, to see what the roadmap is, and to maybe gauge what is the idea here throughout the remainder of this expansion. So on this one, it's a wait and see. Right now, pretty dull. I'm disappointed in it. I know a lot of you are disappointed in it. Some people don't mind it. Okay, that's for you. World questing. World questing is something I'm very skeptical about, because BfA is going to obviously have the shine and the sheen of a brand new expansion, at least for the first couple of months, right? For most players. And it doesn't matter how much you play, you're going to have, even if you're hardcore, you're going to be diving into brand new Mythic Plus, learning all
World quests are good, though.
Raids. If you're super casual, you're still going to be working through leveling and world quests and all that kind of stuff in your first few months. That's going to be fine. It's after that period of time that I have some skepticism. World quests don't seem to serve much of a function anymore, other than there's stuff.
Do you guys want me to turn off the alerts? Because I can turn that shit off real quick. I don't know if it's too loud or annoying.
For you to do.
Okay, I'm going to turn off alerts.
You don't know what else to do, but it's not really worthwhile you doing. So in the early days, of course, world quests will just be for reputation. That's all they're going to be, because early emissary rewards, such as your first piece of epic Azerite armor. You're generally going to get a lot of resources and a lot of artifact power to get your Heart of Azeroth necklace powered up. Those kind of things are what they're going to be for. But that's going to drop off probably for a lot of players after about a couple of months, and you're no longer going to need that AP. You're certainly not going to probably need the reputation. Once you hit Exalted, it's like, well, I don't need the reputation either, and I certainly don't need any more Azerite armor, because along the way you will have picked up enough.
So he's saying that world quests are going to outdate themselves.
The Legendary system is a terrible acquisition of legendaries, no one's denying that, but it did keep world quest relevant for pretty much the entire expansion for everybody. I don't think, unless they add something else, world quests are going to do that, and I think this might be a system that kind of comes across as a failure in its current state after the initial rush of getting everything that you need from there, which is the only way of getting it. So if AP...
So this is what they had happen in Legion, and that's why they added it into Paragon boxes, to keep people doing world quests and like keep these other, like adding in these features to keep people doing the same content over and over. And that's what Legendaries did, is they made people always want to do their world quest throughout the entire expansion. And with BfA, that's not going to be the case. So obviously it's, you know, there's a possibility that world quests might actually just be outdated in a way that wasn't the case for with Legion.
Is going to be the best source, and certainly reputation is going to be the best source. That's going to be okay, but where that is in a couple of months, I definitely have my skepticism as to how that's going to work out for us. In terms of the leveling and the new, we just mentioned leveling there. In terms of the leveling of the new zones, overall, really good. Like visually immersive zones. They are. They're very visual, very visually gorgeous.
I guess that kind of matters. Immersive. Not that important, though.
In my reviews of them, I think the Horde got two fantastic zones with a great story, very interesting story that I enjoyed from the start to the finish.
Fucking Horde favoritism, man.
And one very weak zone, which is also visually stunning. So Vol'dun, I would say, is a weak zone. The story is okay. It has a reasonable payoff, but the bulk of doing the zone is not that interesting, unfortunately. Considering the Mad Max style they're going for with this lost city in the desert. And they pull that off very, very well. Like, visually and thematically, Vol'dun is great. It's really good. I loved seeing, like, the references to, like, old highways going through the sands that have crumbled. It felt very Blade Runner-esque is what they were going for there. But overall, the zone was felt very weak. Certainly in comparison to Nazmir, which is the dark...
I never really did a lot of the Horde stuff.
...troll area, which is really cool. It's an exceptionally good quest line that's intriguing, takes you in all different directions, has really awesome moments that come through with it. And Zuldazar itself, our new capital, which is the exact contrast. It's gold, it's bright, it's beautiful, and the story there, once again, is great and has a wonderful payoff at the end. So all the way through that, you felt like you were building to something, and then it did build to something really good, and enjoyed the hell out of it.
Okay.
Over on the Alliance side, then, I think they got 2 weaker zones, and 1 very, very good zone that I enjoyed a lot.
Yeah.
Now, there's some controversy here because it's subjective. This is subjective stuff. Some people like the opposite of what I like, which is pretty normal. It's not an argument point. We don't need to fight each other.
Well, they're wrong.
Drustvar was one of the zones I was most hyped about. In fact, in the early reveal of BfA, I actually said that I could consider swapping to Alliance because I wanted to be more involved with what Blizzard was showing for the Alliance, in particularly Drustvar and Freehold and the Pirates, and having this really sort of gothic Lovecraftian zone in Drustvar, which really intrigued me because it had all the ghouls and the ghosts, and I like that kind of stuff when I'm playing video games. I like the dark and macabre. So, but then playing through it, it was like, it was okay. Great? No, I didn't think Drustvar was great. Thought it was all right. But left feeling a little disappointed, but potentially I hyped it up too much in my head, because that was like, I was willing to change faction to enjoy this zone proper, and didn't get to do that. Their strongest zone for me was Stormsong Valley, with Hentai Mountain, which you guys will eventually see if you haven't seen it already.
Hentai Mountain?
The story leading through that. Absolutely loved it. It was really intriguing. Started to edge into the old gods and what they were up to and all this kind of stuff. Big moments in the quest, which were interesting. Little build up and then a decent payoff regularly throughout the quest line. Some really good side questing in there. Loved that zone. It started off very light.
It's gonna be a great zone, yes.
And then it kind of goes worse from there. I really like the idea of the Tide Sages as well, and the fleets being majorly involved. I hope there's a big payoff later for that in BfA. Borealis is an interesting one because thematically and visually, I love Borealis. I think it's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. Quest-wise, terrible.
So you call it Borealis.
And should have been better. Like, there's
Borealis.
Inklings, and you get involved with the main bulk of what's happening in that zone. And it comes to a war with 2 matriarchs, which I was very much into. I was like, this is awesome. Let's have these 2 matriarchs go at each other and see what pays off here. Like, what is going to be happening here? I love that
nobody
dynamic.
cares about the questing.
But the main area
who gives a
zone,
shit?
like, geographically, the stuff you do in that zone, some of it is horrific. Like, absolutely childish and horrible. So it had this contrast which left me feeling like really disappointed in the zone overall. But that's fine, because obviously as each faction, once we hit 120, we'll get to visit the other factions. Not in the same way. You're not going to play out their story. You'll get some quests which kind of briefly... So when the Horde travel to the Alliance zones at 120, there are some quests that do involve what's going on in that zone. Very brief ones, but they're kind of like making you aware, because obviously this is going to be something that repeats and comes back later in the expansion, so they need both sides to be aware of what's going on in these zones, and it's the same for the Alliance coming back, but you won't get that full feel for it. This kind of brings us to the war campaign then, I think is the next stop here. So your war
this is important. This part is important.
Class Hall campaigns. I've seen recently a lot of people saying they disliked the Class Hall campaigns. I 100% disagree. I loved all the class campaigns. Not all of them were of equal value, but I thought they were really good. I thought I enjoyed seeing what the priests were up to, and when they merged with the paladins,
exactly
seeing what
the
the rogues were up to, how they were tackling things and doing all that. I thought they managed to take I like the idea of class stuff because it can only be done by your class.
Garrison 3.0, not 2.0.
Feeling like a priest, you're feeling like a rogue, right? And not some nameless person in a dungeon.
I like that.
Who does certain types of damage. I love that stuff. The war campaign is obviously just something that everybody does, so there's no uniqueness to it, and it's gated by some reputation gains. Which means it's very stop-start, and the bits do get you going. They do get you going. Like, once you do your little segment, you're like, this is really good. This bit's fine. This is actually very interesting. The Horde side of things with the Forsaken is really good. And then it just stops. And it's like, okay, well, I've got to wait until I get a certain X amount of reputation before apparently everyone's just going to sit around and wait around for me now to go and get reputation in order to continue what seems to be a very important thing that we need to deal with. And it really just keeps pulling you out of it. But part of that is that it's not very long. So as Blizzard tends to do these days, if they have a quest line they think is good, but it's 25 minutes to get through the whole thing, or maybe an hour, is they chop it up and gate it off as much as possible to really spread it as thin as they possibly can, which is a crying shame, honestly.
And you know, you guys ever notice whenever they gate things off, somehow they're always gated to be like 5 weeks instead of 4, so no matter whenever you sub, you're going to have to pay for 2 subs to finish the quest line? Do you think that's an accident? Is that just a mistake? Is it just some kind of a weird coincidence? I don't know, boys, but it's certainly a little bit interesting.
It really is a crying shame. Blizzard does have this issue with how quickly people consume their content, because we just gobble it up and then we say we want more.
That's right.
I get that, but these really pressing matters being gated off until you fulfill some other arbitrary thing, it feels wrong. It feels wrong, because by the time you get back to doing it and suddenly this quest exclamation mark pops up on your head, you kind of forgot what you did last time. It's like, oh yeah, that's that guy. Oh yeah, that's that guy. Unless you're very deep into the lore, and you kind of got this memory for all these important characters. For those of us who aren't super into the lore and we enjoy the story as we're playing it, which is where I would put myself, I come back and I'm like, what was that guy's name? Oh, that's that guy. Oh, yeah, he did this. And you kind of like trying to remember it, and you've definitely been pulled out of what's going on. It's like, okay, what's next? And also you have this bittersweet taste that this is probably going to be like an hour of stuff to do, and then it's going to stop. And maybe it'll stop at like a cliffhanger or a really arbitrary point, because obviously it needs some more reputation, or that's all they're going to give you for now.
You need to get revered to do the rest of it.
Up the class hall mission table, or the faction mission table, I should say, which, if you're not sure how this works, you're going to be sending followers out. You get way less followers so far. It's like 5 or 6. And they're going to basically unlock outposts. And this is the war campaign, which I believe starts about 116, so you'll want to check your faction hub to see whether the class war campaign has started. It's going to give you quests to unlock outposts on the enemy islands. Okay, so the Horde will get follower missions in order to go to the Alliance zones. And what you're going to do is set up outposts. These are essentially flight points. In nearly all cases, there's no quests to be done. There's nothing particularly interesting there. Like I mentioned earlier, there are some areas that have quests just to let you know what the idea in this zone was, so you know for the story later. But for the most part, you're just going to be unlocking flight points to make world questing easier. That's pretty much what you're going to be getting out of there. So the war campaign, very watered down, has some cool, interesting moments for sure. Some moments that made some of my viewers, when we did it on stream, a little bit uncomfortable, which is nice to see. It's like, oh, taking out your comfort zone a bit. You're definitely going to be feeling it a bit more.
Fuck?
Some people might think it's too much.
What's going on?
But we'll see. Overall,
what's going on in this game,
pretty light. It's okay.
Oh, shit.
I guess now we're on world questing and also going to the enemy alliance. War mode. War mode is a good idea. In practice, it needs some serious tweaking. So war mode is now all realms
some serious
in BfA
servers.
are considered PvE realms, and what you can do is go to Orgrimmar and I believe Stormwind for the alliance, and activate war mode. If you activate war mode, you are then phased to a different version of the server, where you will only encounter other players that also have war mode. That includes your friendlies as well. You will not encounter any players who do not have war mode on, and that's a problem. That's a problem. So how does war mode work out in the open world?
How's that a problem?
It depends on who you're going to meet. It's basically like playing old World of Warcraft when PvP mode was enabled, which is what they're going for. So on a PvP realm, I should say. So basically what happens is sometimes you'll bump into people who want to PvP. They'll try ganking you. Essentially, it's just like you'll just suddenly realize there's a rain of arrows coming down on you. And then you've got to deal with it. And then occasionally that's going to break out into groups of you. There's certain incentives now to form a World Quest group rather than a group for World Questing. Because World Quest Group Finder no longer functions in BfA. They've killed that. The better solution, and I recommend you guys do this, is to post a group to go, certainly in the early days, let's make a group to go and do all the world quests for reputation, right? So you have like 5 of you to travel around the world together and get...
Remember whenever we used to do that? We would all get together, or I'd get up in the morning and be like, yo, boys, let's get together. We get a little group of the boys. We ride around the Broken Isles, and we save all the squirrels. We collect all the nuts. We talk to all the druids. And it was nice. It was great. I used to do that all the time. I like that, having to group up and do quests together. I think it's cool.
Your world quest done, that should make your war mode experience
it's good.
Much more fun, much more interesting.
You love it.
But you're also going to encounter people who clearly just want it on for the bonus. So war mode gives you extra AP, extra resources. There are benefits to having war mode enabled because they're trying to encourage people to do it. So occasionally, or regularly actually, you'll just run into members of the enemy faction who clearly just have this thing on just for the bonus. So it's up to you whether you feel like bloodlust or whether you're just not asked and you want to get your world quest done. I had war mode on, and most of the time we ended up doing what we do in Legion, which is people just ignore each other, and because I'm only here to get this reward, I'm not really bothered about the PvP.
World of Peacecraft.
It's usually skewed anyway. It's not exactly a fair fight in any open world environment, so that's the way it went. The problems with war mode, though, oh man, real issues when working with friends. This is a bummer. This is a real bummer. So if it only takes one person to not have war mode on, if you have war mode on, or somebody being opposite of whatever you've got activated, to start messing around with your plans. Because you can't do things like summon together, because you're phased to different groups. So if you start a group with friends and you like invite them, and one of them hasn't got war mode
that makes sense.
You two are stood at the summon stone, you're not going to be able to summon your mates because you can't see each other. You can't do things. Again, in world boss situations, you can't summon people to the world boss, or you can't group with them. So you might have a group for... This happened to us at least 7 or 8. Every time we tried to make a group with people who were friends, if they'd forgotten or something like that, they haven't got war mode on, what eventually happens is, I think you can summon them, but they can't see you and they can't take part in the content because you guys have got war mode on and they haven't. So
that's
then
pretty
they have
weird.
To go back to a major city, and it's
like the Matrix.
Orgrimmar or Stormwind. You can't do this in your
The
BfA
fuck?
cities. You have to go back to there and then come back again in order to actually join the group and take part. Certainly when doing 5-man dungeons, this created a problem for about 20 minutes for us, as people who joined and were like, I want to join. Those people then could not take part in the dungeon because they had war mode switched off, and then they had to go back and come back again, and it was infuriating. It's absolutely infuriating. So the solution is obviously you need to make the message loud and clear, and you guys will get this, is like, we play with war mode on or off. And if you are opposite of this and you want to come to the group and do something, you're going to have to go and change it to whatever the majority of the group is.
Here's a solution that they need to do. They just make it to where whenever you go into the group finder, it filters the groups that are in war mode versus the groups that are not in war mode for outdoor questing dynamically based off of what you have. I feel like that's the simple thing to do. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what makes sense to me.
Regularly, when doing the larger world quests that needed a group, I would say have war mode on, but the person, say from guild or whatever, was on an alt or whatever, and they hadn't switched it on, so they'd fly out. And it's just something you don't think about because you're not used to it. They would fly out and be like, well, where are you? It's like, oh shit, war mode. Right, so one of us has got to go back to, and as a mage, it was obviously me, because you can see why it was infuriating for me, is I was always the one who had to like portal to Orgrimmar, change my status, then come back again so we could do world questing. And it was just like, ugh, this is really annoying. What I would have preferred is something like, if you're
that's me, not you. Don't worry about it.
Something that changes you, or if you join a group that's like,
there is a virus scan, and we're good, boys. We're good. We're clean. No STDs today.
Got war mode switched off for whatever reason, like neutralizes it or something, gives you a warning. It's like, join this group, will neutralize your war mode or something like that. So it can't be abused. Right, so if you're in a group with someone without war mode, it switches it off.
Make it to where you can do it in any
you can do that to get out
city.
of PvP scenarios. So it's got good and bad sides to it. Let's put it that way.
That's
what
true.
I would suggest is the solution is simple: get used to checking war mode. Get used to like joining a group, and before anybody starts doing anything, it's like, is war mode on? Are we doing war mode or not? You'll have to get into this habit of making sure it's right, and that'll solve a lot of problems this system comes with. War mode? Warfronts. Let's talk Warfronts then. Warfronts are...
more like boar
kind of
fronts.
fun. I've only done them once. So, you know, I'm going to be honest with you, take it with what it is. It's a slow start, A very slow. So what is the Warfront? Warfront is a
Warfront.
PvE only situation.
PvE only.
Some people still believe this is PvP. It's not.
It's
where
not.
you siege something. So it's like the battle for Arathi is currently the one in BfA, and I believe they're going to expand this to different scenarios. So what they're trying to do is create this Warcraft 3 style RTS, but you're involved and you're going to be sieging. I think Stromgard.
I was so excited for this.
It starts slow because the initial part of it is work, zug. You've got to go and collect timber, you've got to go and collect iron so you can build the structures in your base, and they've simplified it a lot because I think people were getting confused with how it worked, which is often the case in WoW. So they've really simplified it. So it ultimately turns into right-clicking trees and then right-clicking a signpost, similar to what you'd seen on the Broken Shore with the building construction or garrisons. Right-clicking a signpost and just right-clicking, and it just tallies up everybody's materials in order to get the buildings done, and then you can construct tanks and stuff similar to what you'd seen in PvP,
of course,
and then ultimately you move on to take over the castle. But it's also designed with winning in mind. Like, you're not supposed to lose, and the reason for this is there's a very short time span for a lot of players, so they want to make sure that if you get access to the Warfront, which is done by turning in profession materials from everybody. I'll come back to that in a second.
Okay.
But you basically have this little scenario that plays out. It takes about 25 minutes of building up your... First of all, you're going to build the base, then you're going to siege the castle, then you win. So it is supposed to be a guaranteed win, which a lot of people take away. That's not that fun. I agree. I would like a harder version of the war mode, of the Warfronts, but
I want to see a PvP version.
What do you get for doing the Warfront?
There's a PvP version.
Certain transmogs, and also currently Arathi. Once you finish the Warfront, the Arathi Warfront, Arathi then becomes a 120 only zone. Currently, all that really offers is some quests, which I believe will be weekly quests. Essentially, this is your weekly
talk about the mounts
type situation.
Talk about the
you'll
mounts.
Get some weekly quests which reward a box of gear, some resources, AP, the usual stuff, and a lot of rare mobs. There's a lot of rare mobs in the zone. So there is a world boss, okay? There's a world boss, and there's a lot of rare mobs. And the rare mobs drop 355 loot, which is like normal mode raid loot. So
who cares?
Quality, right? And that includes Azerite armor as well. So it's worth doing once a week, certainly in the early days. It's something that I think might really taper off at some point. Even though it's only short, it might be something you just whiz down and get done once a week as something
who cares
that you
about
should
loot?
do, because it has a chance of doing some good stuff. But certainly if you're somebody with access to higher
Where's
than
the mounts?
355 loot, it's probably going to drop off and tail off relatively quickly. I can also see it being abused heavily by AFKers, and I hope they do something about that, because you need everybody to be collecting lumber and iron ore and all this.
I want to say one thing, dude. This is really funny. My second Warfront that I ever did in the beta, I did it off stream. I went AFK. Like, the second one I ever did, I was like, yo, fuck this, dude. Like, you guys have fun, man. I just wanted to see what was going to happen at the end. So, yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you go AFK? If there's no reason not to, I mean, come on.
Kind of stuff from the mines in order to really get it done. And if it comes down to very few people in the group doing that, I do want those people removed. If you've not done something, it was pretty clear that some people just weren't doing anything, even when...
What an elitist perspective.
Either they didn't know what was going on, which they should do because you get quests telling you what to do.
Wow.
Or just like, this is boring. Somebody else fill up the bar. Because you're essentially just filling up bars over and over and over again.
Somebody else.
I think they could have done a lot more with the 120 zone. Whether hopefully they'll turn it up and do something more interesting with it. Because basically you just fly around Arathi. Because you can fly there because it's old world content. So you can use your flying mounts.
Okay.
And just fly around, rare mob, kill rare mob, rare mob. And once they're done, you can't kill them again for the week. So you just basically do this lap around Arathi, kill all the rares, kill the world boss, and then you're done. It's a piece of content that is a piece of content, and there's not much else to say on it. It's there as something to do.
Talking about the mounts, dude.
And the worth of doing it is very dubious. Very, very dubious. But the way you access it isn't dubious. So
imagine not talking about mounts.
Horde and Alliance. Okay? So the Horde have access to it for a few days. Then the Alliance have access to it for a few days. And the way you access the Warfront and the way these timers are based is based on turn-ins. So down at your faction hub, you will have a lot of people with a blue exclamation mark over the head, all looking for slightly different things. So there'll be a guy who's after tailoring materials, a guy who's after blacksmithing materials. And it doesn't matter what professions you have, they're all available. and they give a lot of reputation and AP. They give a lot of reputation.
That is good.
Hell of a lot of reputation. So you want to do these turn-ins, particularly in the early days. So Warfronts look very good for alts. Very, very good for alts. Now, you might say, well, I'm an enchanter, so I can't, obviously, I'm an enchanter tailor, I can't get the dual crafting stuff. Not true, not true, because they've introduced something to replace the Obliterum Forge called the Scrapper. The Scrapper is pretty good. So what does the Scrapper do? The scrapping machine, when you go to it, will take all the crap you've collected, all the gear and stuff that you no longer want, and you have a choice now what you want to do with that gear. You can either sell it for gold, as you usually would. If you're an enchanter, you can obviously disenchant it, or you could throw it in the Scrapper. Throwing stuff in the Scrapper, depending on the item slots you throw in. So trinkets give different stuff. I think heads and shoulders give different stuff, and rings give different stuff. Throwing this stuff in the Scrapper, so throwing rings in the Scrapper, for example, will provide you with a chunk of dual crafting materials. Right?
That's fucking cool.
I think weapons give blacksmithing stuff. It's something like that. That's the idea behind it, right?
That's awesome.
Specifics don't really matter, but throwing gear into the Scrapper that you collect
that is
on your
good.
journey of world questing or whatever, and this might be kind of how they're trying to keep world quest relevant. So
yes,
picking up those rings that you no longer need and stuff because you
this
get
is so good
materials out of them. Maybe. You can then turn them in down at the Warfront turn-ins on each guy because you only turn in once per guy. Turning them in and get a huge bonus reputation reward for doing that, and also for people who aren't enchanters, you're getting something more valuable out of the trash gear that you're usually just vendoring off for no reason.
That's true.
So I really like
this is good.
I think it's a good idea to bring something into it.
It's a great idea.
In terms of farming, then, because we went back to
one of the best,
then we could talk about the island expeditions. This is something Blizzard was super proud of. You could tell when they announced it. Very, very proud of the island expeditions. But I don't think it's worked. Unfortunately, I think people have seen right through it as there's just no way this really works. So island expeditions are your AP big source, but they drop off relatively quickly. You'll have a weekly objective to do some island expeditions that'll give you a big bonus, and then it will drop off. You can do normal mode, heroic mode, mythic mode, and PvP mode, and you'll be sent off to a random island, which will be then randomly generated, so the mobs and the theme of it.
So there's 3 different islands
and stuff one time, then there's frost, and there's earth, and things like that. There might be Naga there this time. So different kinds of enemies, and different locations for the bonus objectives that you have on there. And the whole point is to mine the island of Azerite. That's it. You're just mining the island of Azerite, and the first to collect the Azerite cap for that island, so it'll say 0 of 3,000, for example, the first of 3,000 wins. That's it. So at the same time, if you do normal, heroic, or mythic, there are NPCs that are situated actually near the boats. You can go and see the groups of NPCs. There's like a double Fire Mage Holy Paladin team. They've all got little individual names, so you'll get to know them. And Blizzard was very, very proud of this content because they said they created really good AI, so they would behave like players would do. So they might wait for you to engage in combat before attacking you. They might try and hide.
Oh, it's like me.
Not really, no, it doesn't really work that way. And generally speaking, if you see them coming near you, you're probably just going to switch and kill them because the map shows clearly where they are. Even with Fog of War, you do know if they're relatively close. And you can see...
It's about right.
It will depend on your graphics quality, of course,
That's
but you can
about
see them from quite far away as well. So it's not like you get surprised very often by the NPCs being around and killing them. In PvP... it's basically a gank fest. Yeah, they'll be far more sneaky in PvP, but there's no reason when doing the PvP stuff not to attack people when they're doing something dangerous. So if they pull the rare mob on the island, that's
then
when
you go,
attack,
you get them.
You're obviously getting all that help. So it turns into kind of a gank simulator. Not that fun, not that interesting. It's not like you would go into island expeditions to PvP. There's arenas, there's battlegrounds and stuff for that where it's far more fair-ish.
Fair?
This isn't the place for it. So...
cares about that?
You know, it's not as clever as they made it out to be, at least in all the content I've tried. And I've tried it regularly. I tried it like once every month as it got updated, and it's not been as clever as they want. Certainly in terms of the randomization of the islands, that's okay, because we're going to get far more variations of the islands, which will keep it relatively fresh. I don't think people are being fair saying this content dries up really quick. I don't think it will. There's actually a lot of variation in the theme of the place where you go, so it's not always just the sunny island. We know we're going to get like just far locations and things like that. which are far more dark
that's
and
good.
gloomy.
That's good.
But ultimately, the randomization isn't of the same scale you would expect in a roguelike adventure, right? So what you get is there are certain things on the island. So finding a shovel and a torch corresponds to other things, and it's basically just a case of where's the torch on this island? Okay, where's the guy I need to free with this island? With this, where's the ore on this island? Where's the guy with the boat? And that's the more randomization that you're going to find. Other than that, it's very faceless because you're just going to start killing the mobs as soon as you start. It doesn't really matter what location and stuff they're in. So I don't think it'll be dry up as quickly as people think. It's just not as exciting as we hoped it would be. But potentially, if they keep the variation in the theme up, it could get
better.
More relevant, which I hope is what they're aiming for than Mists of Pandaria Scenarios did. And I think they're going to do that. Moving forward, then, let's talk about dungeons. Then the dungeons are really good. I love some of these dungeons. King's Rest, which is the mythic only dungeon, is a particular favorite of mine. Really enjoy that dungeon.
Mythic only.
Waycrest Manor is astonishingly cool. I recommend to anybody here to have music on, which is I haven't had WoW music on now for about 8 years, and BfA I will have it on all the time because they're using proper dynamic music. This time. So they seem to have pulled from Destiny on this. Whether or not they'll pull it off is a point of contention, certainly in this office. I've yet to see the raids using the dynamic music, because it came in quite late.
I don't know what the dynamic music is.
What is dynamic music?
Oh,
moving into different phases of a boss encounter, slightly different areas of a quest line, will alter the music to fit the theme of what you're currently doing. So if the quest line certainly has a mini cutscene in game, so you see the NPCs actually performing in front of you. So it's not a cutscene, but they're telling a story. The music will change as this is playing out, and it'll change relatively smoothly, and it'll keep you far more immersed. I'm hoping that in the raids they really pull this off. The dungeons take full advantage of this. Waycrest Manor's soundtrack is astonishingly good. It's so fucking good, to the point where when it came in, I was spammed like, you have to go and listen to this because it fits it so well. In terms of Mythic Plus, then Mythic Plus is actually looking really good. It's got some problems, certainly for the high end. No gear swapping is it's horrific. It really is horrific. It's not as big of a deal as it would have been in Legion, because we don't have access to as much fun stuff, which is, it's like, it's not that bad. It's my hand hurting isn't that bad because I haven't got an arm to attach it to. It's kind of like it's a double evil that lessens one of them. But how they play and the Mythic Plus mechanics they've put in there work really well. Tank Threat is working itself out as we expected it would do. They've boosted massively. Although they've dropped tank threat a lot, what they've done to counter it is really boost AoE damage on tanks. Tanks do crazy AoE damage, which is the obvious counter. So to prevent kiting, which is still going on, by the way, kiting is still taking place because tanks are figuring out how to work around it, which is no shock or surprise to anybody. As long as you can also just stay in melee, do tremendous amounts of damage for certain periods of time, and then you can effectively kite and do stuff anyway. So that hasn't defeated that in any way. But what it does mean is it's fine. You will struggle with bad tanks. There's no way you're not going to. There's no way in BfA. If you have a bad tank, it's going to suck. So rogues, hunters, get your macros ready. Help those dudes out, because Misdirect and Tricks of the Trade, certainly in the Pug world, are a very big deal now. Fuck them, dude. Certainly if your tank is not aware of his Thunderclap cooldown, you're going to run into some trouble. Raiding overall. Raiding's a mixed bag. Uldir, I've tested normal mode, heroic mode, and mythic Uldir. Everything besides mythic Mithrax, I think, and mythic Gahoon, which are the last two bosses. I don't think we did mythic Mithrax. Fun side story. I'm pretty sure we have done mythic Mithrax, but they did it under the guise of heroic, and then they suddenly changed the fight rather dramatically while we were testing it.
Blizzard is lying.
A shell of what we were originally testing, so it feels like maybe we have tested Mythic, although it wasn't called Mythic, but that would be a guess. So don't quote me on that. Uldir's theme and look, as with everything, the art team is nailing it once again. It's great. Can't wait to hear the music. Bosses are a mixed bag. Some are interesting and good. First boss, second boss, really, really good. Third, fourth, and fifth boss, what happened there? Something for me, it was like, ooh. Misstep for sure. Misstep is for sure on this one, and then it picks up again towards the end. So overall, it looks decent enough. It looks better than Emerald Nightmare. I would say it looks better than Emerald Nightmare. And that's enough for me for the first raid. It's
That's good.
Nightmare. I'm intrigued. I'm going to look forward to see how
that's
this
a big
plays out.
improvement.
I think that's going to be good. The personal loot has gone forward. Unfortunately, our cries have not been heard. But again, it's like a Mythic Raider problem, which most people don't care about because, you know, Mythic Raiders, who gives a fuck about those, right?
That's
it's
right.
pretty horrible. And I expect, again, 2 months after BfA, I think that's when it's really going to hit home just how frustrating and idiotic this system is,
yes,
and how much of a cumbersome addition to raiding it's going to be.
Yes,
and it's not going to be that bad early days because
yes,
most people won't be able to trade stuff anyway because of item levels or whatever. But when you start gearing your group and the repeats start coming in, certainly on the Azerite armor. So for a very brief window of about a week, we could trade Azerite armor. We thought they'd relented on that. They've changed that back now, so we can't trade Azerite armor at all. It doesn't matter the item level. It doesn't matter if you are wearing 390 shoulders. If you get a pair of 280 shoulders for your friend, you can't give them to them.
Nope.
This is going to be a big issue because because there's a very limited amount of Azerite armor within the raids. It does appear that the traits that we'll be looking for as raiders might not be the ones that are on the Azerite armor. And therefore, any Azerite armor certain players get is going to be a waste. Vice versa, your buddy stood next to you really needs the traits from here and would absolutely love for you to be able to trade them, and you would love to be able to give them to him. But you're not going to be able to, which is very frustrating. As in the world of RNG, as we know, I'm only talking about Azerite armor here, but it will be effective for every item, is sometimes you just keep getting the same item over and over again for some reason. I've coin rolled, how many people would say I've coin rolled like the cloak like 8 times now? It just makes no sense. Whereas the other guy's like, I can't get a cloak for the fucking life of me. Which is that's going to be really frustrating. And on top of that, for most Mythic Raiders, again, I know I'm preaching to a very small amount of people here, the real hassle for us is going to come on farm, where we want to
such a dog shit game, dude.
Because you know that's what we do. We go as fast as
so
possible.
So tired of this
and
game.
It's going to be a case of who's got what, can we trade it? I have seen that the personal loot helper, which many of us made so much fun of because it was that one that like spammed the raid if you could trade an item.
That shit was annoying.
That guy has come back and updated that so it no longer does that, and it functions more like a loot council add-on. So it says, you got this item. Do you want to put it up for trade? Do you want to do something? Do you want to let people know? And then people can then roll on that item. So they are doing that. I really recommend people take a look at that. I'm watching its development to see whether that's going to kind of ease the pain. But ultimately, we're going to be swapping items between bosses a lot, which is not for me. Not for me. Minor mentions here that don't come into this then. The global cooldown change has gone through as well. Again, it's one of those things that I think only the higher end players are really going to notice it, and only if you're playing a class that's been very affected by it.
It's so dumb, dude.
It's an issue that's difficult because not everybody's affected by it, and therefore they don't see the big deal. It's a very selfish attitude towards it. But let me tell you, there's this idea going around. It's like, you play for an hour and then you forget about it. No, you really don't. You really, really don't. I've been playing BfA since BfA Alpha launched in February, and it still frustrates the shit out of me. It still does to this day. It's awful when you realize, because all that happens is you go to do something, and it just doesn't work. And it's worked for you for 8 years.
That seems familiar.
Whatever, and you're just like, it's the global cooldown change, and you're just like,
that's the fun part.
It just sucks the life out of you. But again, it's one of those things that I don't think most people are going to fucking notice, which is a real shame because it was hard to get a loud voice against it, I think. Because it is definitely there and it definitely sucks. It really does suck. I think that's all I want to mention. The community's feature is very good. I like it. It's got some development to do. The interface itself is ugly. They could have done a much better job with the interface.
Okay.
But I think any other stuff would be minor stuff. Those are the big points I wanted to hit from my perspective. Going in, BfA is... I'm going in with trepidation. As I've mentioned several times throughout this, it's in a couple of months that it's really going to hit. And they're kind of easing people into it, because they're going to allow legendaries to work till, I believe, 116. So I can already predict that BfA is going to launch, like even with pre-patch, and people are going to be like, I don't know what the fuck you're moaning about, this is fine, but this is why they are staggering your sort of... They're easing you in to what's happening. So at 160, I mean, it's a long way into the expansion that legendaries are going to be deactivated. Any previous expansion, I'm pretty sure they would have switched that off very early. But this time they're kind of easing you in. So you can use your legendaries for a lot longer than probably you should be able to. So it's not a full brunt of how backwards some of the classes have gone. So they're going to ease you into it. And then you're only going to have 4 levels, which is near cap, and then you're going to open this whole new world up. So it's going to be like only 4
done that every
levels
time
where you've lost something
with the cloak and the ring.
Into it. Clever, very clever. But it's in a couple of months, so I want to see how things play out. When, like I said, I have skepticism about the World Quest system. It feels like a dead feature to me. I have skepticism about the Warfronts and their longevity because they don't offer that much. And they're guaranteed wins, which is off-putting, and that means people are just going to slack through them, and it's going to be frustrating and a horrible experience.
Yeah.
Expeditions, I think, will last a little longer than that. Mythic Plus looks to be fine. Raiding looks to be fine. It's the overall Outer World. It's actually, I've got to be honest with you, despite the horrors that we face as Mythic Raiders going into BfA, all the changes that are happening there, which are not nice in any way, I'm actually more concerned about the more casual play base. I genuinely am more concerned about those guys because a lot of their content that was I don't see them. I don't personally see it, and maybe it's just because I don't play that way. I don't personally see a lot of motivation to play Battle for Azeroth after a couple of months, at best, and that's if you're very casual. Like, for example, I'm pretty sure I can eat through the BfA content on multiple characters within a week or a week and a half, and that's genuinely true. The only thing that might go beyond that is probably just like finishing off a couple of reputations or something like that. For anybody who plays like a few hours a week, it's going to take you a couple of months to sort of eat through that. But then what are you going to be left with? Will that be when 8.1 is rolling around? I don't know.
Probably not.
That's my thoughts going in. I'm nowhere near as hyped as I usually am for a WoW expansion because there's a lot of stuff that personally affects me. Won't affect many of you guys that I don't like. And we'll see how that plays out. And obviously, if it does play out like I think it's going to play out, then I don't know. Maybe this is when I call it a day because there's not much else for me to get excited about here. But for many players, I think it's going to be good. I think for many players, it's going to be a decent start to the expansion. I'm interested to see what happens when people realize their classes are far more lackluster. Once the sheen and the shine wears off, it's like, hang on a minute, yeah, I kind of see what's going on here. Like, this is not interesting. Or whether people are like okay with a much more regressed, simplified class.
I don't think so.
Case, and it's just me who.
That's what happened with BfA
with
WAD.
Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you again. Bye bye.
I think that made a lot of sense. That was a good video overall. The video I was watching, by the way, yeah, it was kind of a long video, but yeah, there you go. There's a video I was watching. We'll give him a thumbs up. I thought this was a really good video. I liked it a lot. And it made a lot of sense. I think it was kind of pretty, it was even-handed. I think that's good because a lot of people, and this is something that I kind of even do a lot, and I try not to do, but I'm kind of extreme sometimes whenever I talk about things and whenever I say things, and, it's good because generally Preach isn't really that crazy in the same way that I am, right? And so, yeah, I subscribe. Well, it's like my second channel. Like, I'm not really subscribed to anything on him, but, or anything on that channel at all. But obviously, I'm subscribed to my main channel. Yeah, everybody should subscribe, like that video, watch that video. It was a great video, okay? He puts out good content all the time.